Welcome to Main Street. This is Ryan Mack with a couple of quick tips for union members that might be going on strike. You hear a lot about this in the news where we're seeing a lot of unions that I know personally are going through negotiations, and they may or may not go out well. You never know. Hopefully they do go well. Hopefully they'll be able to get what they're asking for. But I want to talk to the union member to say, make sure that whatever happens, you're prepared that if you do go on strike, here's a couple of quick tips to help you get through that time period. Tip number one, we want you to focus on your emergency savings. Emergency savings are 3 to 6 months of living expenses or 6 to 9 months of living expenses if you're a little bit more conservative. Now, living expenses means those basic essentials. Doesn't mean things like your Netflix subscription. That's not a living expense, so don't include that in your living expenses. If you go on strike, there's a lot of things that we'll talk about in a second that you'll be having to getting rid of. Your emergency funds are things like food, water, clothing, things that are going to help you, prescription drugs, medications, all those things that help you get through the day-to-day for 3 to 6 months. So do that calculation, and right now, if you're not on strike, especially right now, start to save as much as possible to get yourself an emergency fund. Now, we get it. I did a video not too long ago that let's just say your emergency fund is, you calculated to be $12,000. It's like, wow, right, that's $12,000. How can I save that much? Well, make a molehill from your mountain. Make a molehill from your mountain. That means that don't look at it as trying to save $12,000 in an emergency fund. Look at it as saving it $6,000 twice, or $3,000 4 times, or $1,500 8 times, or $750 16 times, and so forth and so forth. Make it as small as possible and be as aggressive as possible to save those allotments until you can actually have an emergency fund that if your union goes on strike, you have your own pool of funds to help you with your day-to-day expenses. Next tip, learn and leverage your union's strike fund if they have one. Does your union have a strike fund? Many unions have where the dues will go towards a strike fund. For instance, UAW, I do believe, has a strike fund that will pay as much as $100 per weekday that kicks in after the 8th day of strike. So does your union have a strike fund? How much will it pay? Learn about all the ins and outs of that before it goes on strike so you know exactly how much you'll be able to get in terms of a stipend to provide for your day-to-day expenses. Next tip I want to talk about is prescription medications. If you're on prescription medications, especially for those individuals that can't afford to miss them, and you're pretty sure that your union is going to go on strike, talk to your healthcare provider before you go on strike to see if you can get extended supplies. We don't have to pay a whole lot of money that you don't necessarily have, especially if you don't have an emergency fund, but we want to cut down the cost as much as possible so you won't have to pay full out-of-pocket costs to get those refills. So you don't want to be without any of your life-needing medications during that strike. So take care of that now before you go on strike, especially if you think you're going on one. Next tip is time to get to work negotiating. Time to get to work negotiating. Your union should not be the only one negotiating. You should be negotiating as well. They're negotiating your contract. Hopefully it works out. You're negotiating with your current bills. Your heat bill, your water bill, your light bill, any bills that you have on a regular basis. Call them in advance and let them know your financial situation has changed. Is there a way you might be able to get it reduced for the month where they might have a payment plan to pay a portion of those and then defer some of the expenses to later months when your financial situation is changed for the better, hopefully after that strike is concluded. Call your credit card companies. Can you get your interest rates reduced? If you owe funds, get those fees forgiven. Get the amount forgiven. Calling them in advance. You want to be the one to call them before they call you, letting them know your financial situation has changed. Listen, if you can save between $5 and $10 over a series of different bills, that definitely adds up. So time to get to work negotiating. Next tip is time to get ruthless with your budget. Ruthless with your budget. Streaming services, membership services, subscriptions, all those things that can go, they need to go. You need to get on a bare bones budget and making sure that all those things like prescription drugs, food, housing, those are the things you want to keep. Anything extra that you can cut right away. Next tip, it might be time to start looking for additional sources of income. First thing you have to do is check with your union, check with your contract to see exactly which type of work you're not allowed to do. Okay? And once you've covered that, then you might be able to get a part-time job. You might be able to do ride share, riding and driving an Uber or a Lyft. In this gig economy, those things are a lot more common. Various work assignments. Are there things around the home that you can sell? Garage sales, Craigslist, all those different types of things that you might not be using that might be valuable to someone else, might be able to make a couple of bucks that way. It's time to get creative and seeing exactly how do I get more money coming in. Next tip is avoid scams. Avoid scams and predators. Listen, they're circling. You know, we're seeing the news that potential unions might be going on strike if these negotiations don't go your way. So if I'm seeing it, they're seeing it, and they're thinking, what can we do to make them use this auto loan so they can take that title and get some quick cash and put them in this perpetual cycle of debt? What can we do to get them into our shop to take out a payday loan, 200 to 300% interest rate? What can we do to get them into this new multi-level marketing scheme that's going to make them falsely believe that they can make $1 million in 2 seconds, right? What can we do to get their money, to get them into this scheme to make us more money so we can profit off of their desperation? Next tip is use your debt wisely and guard your credit score, okay? We get it. Cash flow is restricted during times of strike. And so for basic necessities, it might be prudent for you to use that credit card to buy basic necessities so you can keep your cash available, all right? So now, make sure you're making at least the minimum payment so you can guard your credit score, because what we don't want to have is that on the outside of the strike, when the strike is over, that you don't want to have a messed up credit score. So again, call your debt, let them know exactly what's going on, use your credit cards wisely, pay the minimum to guard your credit score to keep your FICO score as high as possible. So on the other side of this, you're still looking good. Lastly, remember, you're not alone. That's the beautiful part about collective action, is that you have other brothers and sisters that are going through this right alongside of you if you happen to be in strike. So, carpool together. Exchange childcare needs. Go grocery shopping together so you can buy in bulk and start buying for the collective. All these things and a lot more. Use us as a resource. Text this number. Email us. We have over 18,000 nonprofits that can help walk you through the various tips that you just saw in this video free of charge. So use us to your full advantage and make sure we can help you get to the other side of the strike. Come to our weekly meetings. We meet every Wednesday, 7 o'clock. If you have any questions, please feel free to come on out, and live we'll be able to engage and answer those questions for you. Use us as a resource. We'll help you get to the other side. Best of luck to you. Talk to you soon.